What's up, everyone? How's it going? It is December 19th. I have to determine this might be the last midweek of this year. I haven't figured that out yet. I guess it depends on when we take some time off for Christmas with the girls. So this might be it for this year, which it started last year over break is when I got the idea for this. And that was the first one that I recorded was at shortly thereafter. I spoke with Doug and with Nick and we set this up. So that this one is blog 47. So I took a couple of weeks off this year, but 47 episodes so far this year, 47 blog posts, 47 podcast recordings. That's a lot. Um, they're taking me an hour or two to write typically, and then I'm hopping on here. By the time I get set up, all that stuff, another hour. Listener questions, emails. That's a lot of time this year that I've devoted to midweek, and I wouldn't change it. I've enjoyed it. I hope you guys have enjoyed it. I hope that you have been spreading the word. Continue to spread the word. It's much appreciated. Heading into next year, I'm hoping to spend even more time devoted to midweek and the regular recording of Modern Craftsman. Oh, that just reminds me, I heated up a coffee to bring in here, and I forgot it. It's in the other room. Well, I'm not going for it now, so you guys are stuck with me. So I'm going to hang out coffeeless in my freezing office. I don't know. Maybe I know somebody who could better insulate underneath of me. I'll call around and check, see if I can find out. But yeah, it's been a year of this, and a lot of time. I'm excited for next year. I'm excited to change things up a little bit, to integrate some new things. I have some ideas that are rolling around in my head that I'm going to try and implement next year. So I appreciate all the love, the support, the questions. I've had a ton of consulting calls over the past 6 months, a bunch of repeat consulting calls, a bunch of new people, obviously companies and businesses and individuals who are similar size to myself that I've been able to help out and give them a little insight and hopefully shave some time off of the learning curve to owning a small remodeling, construction, renovation business as far as efficiencies, remaining lean, how to make your money, how to ensure that you're capturing all of those costs and everything else. So that's been a ton of fun. I used to be able to schedule through the Square app on Instagram. It's randomly one came through that way recently, so I'm not sure if it's working or maybe they're on the Square app and they found me. I tried to get it to work, wasn't able to get it to work, so people have just been reaching out via email to schedule them. I did drop the ball with somebody looking to sign one up as a gift, and I circled back with them, obviously apologizing just because closing out this job. I was planning on hopping on a call, I think today with them and confirm that date, but didn't send them a confirmation via Square. And they followed up a couple times, and I just didn't get the emails for over a week because I wasn't in the office. I was trying to close that job out. So I dropped the ball there. But into the new year, I have some time where I'm slowing down, catching up on things. My last project went 2.5 months, 3 months past where it was supposed to with added work. So I just really was trying to get my head above water and close that out and get those customers back in the home. So I didn't have much time for anything else. But coming into the new year, I'll have some more time for some more consulting calls. So if you guys are interested in that, shoot me an email, tyler@trghomeconcepts.com. We can discuss what they look like, the price of them, figure out a date and a time that works for you, and then get you all set up. I know this is only coming from me, but I feel as though all the conversations have been very valuable. That a lot of times it sheds light, sometimes very simple light on mistakes that people are making, and ways to improve their business, be more profitable, possibly do a little bit less work, how to differentiate yourself, how to make sure that you're getting paid for all of your time, and just how to structure, manage, run estimate for a small construction company. Renovation, that's what I do. That's how I've been able to do it and make money doing it and build a nice little niche business for myself that, for the most part, is relatively low risk, and as far as construction goes, relatively low stress. I know closing this project out with a deadline and all of the extra things that we ran into was tough, and that was stressful. But still, when I look at this entire year, or I look at the entire few over the course of the past few years, my stress level, my anxiety has been way lower. The amount of stress has been way lower, and the amount of money that I've been able to make has been marginally, maybe more than marginally more. It's the most money that I've made as far as the hours that I've put into it. So there may have been years that I've made more money, but I worked a lot more. So over the course of the past few years, I've gotten paid for the time that I put in, which is a lot of what I want for everyone in our industry, but especially a small business owner, right? To whatever hours you're putting in, if they're above and beyond 8, or if it's weekends, ideally you're not having to go down that route because you've created a living that's sustainable without working 60 hours a week. But if you do, you're at least getting paid for that. So that choice is up to you. So if I can help you with that, again, Tyler at trghomeconcepts.com, figure out what works for you. I can walk you through that process. So this podcast blog post is called It's a Wrap. Reminds me of a Mac Miller song. I finished the project in Medford for my customers that was supposed to be 3 months, maybe 3.5 months. Turned into 6 months. A lot of changes, a lot of unforeseens. I think the biggest struggle was that the unforeseens came a lot of times after we were already completed a task. For example, I thought I was ready for rough inspections, and we ended up finding more rot, which led to having to remove an entire exterior wall, all the windows, order new windows, um, rip down a brick wall, and put in new pancake stones tying into the existing footing, raise up a new partial foundation, and then reframe a wall, all new windows. We ended up having to redo a fiberglass roof deck that we didn't intend on having to do. And at that point, we ended up having to remove the rail system, the door, replacing all of the rails. And then when we found out we had to replace the roof above the kitchen, that led to poor window flashings and poor window placement above that roof, where the window and the rough opening basically intersected with where the ledger of the hip roof tied into the side of the house. So we ended up having to rip those windows out, bump those rough openings up, get new windows for there. And then at that point, we were replacing a couple of roof sections, removing a bunch of siding sections. So it ended up removing a bunch of the siding off the back of the house, redoing the whole roof, redoing gutters inside. We ripped off the back of the porch addition, reframed that, new windows, removed a bunch more stucco than anticipated, redid a lot more plumbing and electrical than anticipated, new subfloor in the kitchen. Let's see. Oh, reframing both ceilings because they essentially added an addition and tied their new floor joist or ceiling rafters into the cantilever instead of going into the exterior wall. So we needed new beams, a bunch of new ceiling framing. Ended up the floor was having a ton of water damage, in the sunroom addition. So we ended up having to remove all of that flooring, grind down the slab, waterproof the slab, install new hardwood in there. Honestly, it just seemed as though it was never going to end. And there were weeks during this project where um, I would pull stuff back and we were ready to move on and realize, like, no, I can't move on. We have to postpone. We have to get an engineer back in here. Um, Really, really just disheartening. It was tough, obviously, from a schedule perspective, but just from a morale perspective. And then my customers had to pay for all of this. Um, so actually, I want to record a podcast maybe in the new year with regard to numbers on this. And I can make up some hypothetical numbers, so I'm not disclosing everyone's finances here, but what this project looked like initially, where our budgeting wound up, and then what the changes wound up being. But essentially, this job wound up being a little less than 2x what we thought it was going to be. And I was going through numbers yesterday while I was wrapping up some invoicing, and I looked at my initial budget for the project, and then the way I track this job is all of our contracted costs, and then anything that was a change or an extra, I had marked that it was a change or an extra, so I could take the original contract number, the final number, the changes, and I can figure out, what we budgeted initially, what the original contract budgeted scope of work wound up to be, and then what the changes were and what we had budgeted for the changes. Um, and for our changes, we were right within, I think I gave them a $30,000 window because when we budgeted for them, I believe they were securing new financing at this point, so they needed a range. So we budgeted a $30,000 range. We ended up running into more things, but we wound up within that range. I think towards the higher end of that range. Excuse me, real quick. Sorry, couldn't breathe. What's new? We end up in the higher end of that range, but we ran into more things. So we still stayed within that range of what we projected the added costs to be all said and done, but we did run into more work that I think we squeezed into that higher end of that budget. And then as far as the initial budget of work and what that actually ended up costing, I believe that we were within $7,000 or $8,000 over. Um, what we thought the initial budget, what we contracted the budget to be. Um, so when you look at the actual cost of the job, right? And let's see, let me do some quick math here. I would say I'm trying not to disclose these numbers right now so that nobody knows. I'll do a whole podcast on this, but realistically, probably rough math, it's showing me right now less than 3%, that we were within 3% of what we thought this job would cost. The original contract, I think it was around 5% of where we intended to be, a little bit over, but realistically, it's somewhat convoluted because a lot of the work that we wound up doing affected the original scope. And there's some things in there where, like, dump fees, where there was extra demo and stuff where I didn't necessarily add them as a change. I just squeaked them into the main budget where maybe they would have been changed. So we're pretty close. Honestly, might be the closest I've ever been. Might never get that close again. I'd be lying to you if I told you that we were within 2-3% on every budget. Typically, that's not the case. A lot of times you are over. Just nature of the beast. You run into things that you don't account for, and you're trying to sharpen your pencil as much as possible while budgeting. But I was happy with that. The customer's probably not happy with that, but they were able to budget for this accordingly, and I came right in where I wanted to be. Again, I think I want to record an entire podcast on that, but I have to find a way to change those numbers, or at least work in percentages. I don't mind getting into that with somebody, but it's just not my position to disclose the financial capacity or what somebody else spent. That's not my money. That's their own business to discuss. But yeah, basically this job went 2x as far as time, 2x as far as money goes, and it was a lot of times really demoralizing. I can't imagine what the customers went through. I can't imagine seeing what was happening with your house and knowing that you live there, your kids live there, this is your forever home, what potential issues may be elsewhere in the house. But we ran into everything. We ran into water issues, health issues as far as mold, air quality, structural issues, ran into design issues, obviously issues that were created by our own mistakes. I'd be lying if I said that we did this job for 6 months and I didn't screw anything up, or that my team didn't screw anything up. Definitely did. But at the end of the day, we turned this project over, and I did the best that I could do. My team did the best that they could do. We fixed anything that was wrong that we had the capacity to fix. And I feel that we turned over really an uncompromising product to these customers. Um, it was definitely not easy. I don't think I would want to do it again. I was up on the roof installing the rails, which I waited to install the rails on the roof deck, like the whole system, till the end of the job, because I just wanted to get them inside and get out of their house. And the whole fiberglass roof deck was frozen. And I'm thinking to myself, I was up here in the middle of summer, profusely sweating, lightheaded, thinking to myself, I'm going to die of heat exhaustion. And now I'm up here slipping and sliding with my wedge sole Red Wings on because the entire roof deck is frozen. And I was like, it's been a long time. It's been a lot of trouble. And very difficult. We didn't anticipate running into this much work, as far as the workforce that we had set up for this and the sub pool that we had set up for this. And there's a few things that I could have done differently to overlap. I could have started painting other areas of the house and cleaning other areas of the house as we buttoned up the kitchen, which would have saved a couple of weeks getting them in. But at the point that all of this happened, and juggling things and then getting new subs in, or trying to have sub schedules align, um, I found the right call for me was just, we started the job, let's finish this job. And so that's what we did. And at the end of the day, I feel like we turned over an uncompromising product to these people, which they're very deserving of it. These customers were absolutely amazing. I didn't see them a handful of times throughout this whole project until we started to close things out. Um, and we had more questions. We had things that we were running into that we wanted to really run by them, engage them. But they moved out. They moved their two young daughters out. They moved their dog out. They moved out, and they expected to be back in right after the kids started school. I think it was late September. That we intended on getting them in initially. And then obviously we just ran into hiccup after hiccup, and we kept bumping that date. We bumped it until right before Thanksgiving. I think we were going to get them in, maybe right after Thanksgiving. And then we found out that the floors got stained the wrong color. I know a lot of people wanted to know about that, and we were unsure what happened. Um, we did samples on the floor, and we picked a sample. We picked the ratio. I was there while the ratio was confirmed. It was this. I think it was 3-to-1 of two colors, off the top of my head. Um, we mixed three parts to one. That was the decision and the selection the designer made. So floor contractor went and got, you know, enough stain to do 3 parts to one, sanded off the samples, sent the designer with the sample stick, didn't keep a sample stick on the job for himself. So lesson learned for me, make sure that we keep one of them on the job when staining goes down. This typically is pretty straightforward, right? The hardest part is getting the mixture right and confirming that with the people and making sure it looks right. And we did that, but it was just, um, made the samples, didn't keep a stick, obviously sanded the sample off the floor, went out and bought the stain that was needed for the floor and stained it. Um, Came in and didn't really think anything of it. Obviously, the floor sub didn't, but it wound up being way too dark. The type of stain that it is it's not as much a penetrating stain. I mean, it definitely penetrates, but it's not like a linseed stain, and it has some body to it, almost like a dye stain. So it got put on and then buffed off with the machine, and you could see around the edges that like where it first got applied was a lot lighter than the second coat where it got buffed on. And so initially it was like, oh, you know what? The buffer basically put a second coat of stain on, and that's what darkened it. And we thought that that was the case because I could see around like in the refrigerator cabinet where around the edges the buffer didn't go over and it was considerably lighter. But then when the designers confirmed that the floor color was wrong, I already had everything down and protected. So we were like, hey, if it's not right, nobody had come out to the job, but like if it's not right, um, realistically, there's nothing that can be done about it at this point, except for it'll be a refinish at the end of the project. Floor sub um, confirmed that. He's like, I mixed it the way that we decided. It was 3-to-1, this color to this color. Um, that's what we did. I don't know if like he's like I sanded it all the same, I water popped it all the same, but if it's not right, it's not right. We'll fix it. Um, so at that point it's like, yeah, there's nothing that can be done about it. Let's get the project done, see what it looks like, start bringing finishes in. If it's not the right color, we'll sand it and refinish it and then touch up paint, and it'll be a refinish. There's at this point the project's going to keep moving forward. He has to get to another job. We're not going to sand the whole floor and redo it right away right now. Let's get the cabinets in, we'll leave the trims off, we'll treat it as a refinish. So that was always the plan. So what we found out when it was time to mix new stain is like, listen, it's already happened once. I'm going to do the stain this time. Not actually stain, but let's get the cans of stain here, and I want you to sand a portion of the floor, and I'm going to put samples on the floor, and we're going to figure out what the ratio is, what went wrong, and then we'll figure out how to move forward. So what ended up happening is we got the same stain and we mixed it 3-to-1, and it was the same as what was on the floor. That was done incorrectly. So what happened was when he pulled the cans to do the 3-to-1, the one was already, is it the one or the three? Let me think about this for a second. No, the 3 was already diluted a fair amount. Um, so it was already a custom mix that was filling up a can. So that 3 parts was already diluted and didn't realize. Oh no, sorry. The one was already diluted and didn't realize that. So when he did the mix, it wasn't actually 3-to-1. The one was already diluted. So the ratio should have been 1 to a lot higher because the one was already diluted. It wasn't a full 1. Um, so we were thinking, right, if that was diluted by a third, that it was probably like 9-to-1. So when we ended up mixing things up, it was more like 15-to-1. So whatever that one was that he thought was a full can of fresh new stain was actually heavily diluted. So it wound up being like closer to 15-to-1. So obviously the floor color was wrong. At that point, we ended up going with a different floor stain that was less green, more of a linseed based penetrating stain that I felt fit the house better. um, was just like a more natural tone on the floor, and I think at the end of the day wound up with a better floor color and better for that house, less green, fit a lot better anyway. So I'm happy with how things turned out. Um, but yeah, we went through that whole thing and delayed that, so the customers had to stay out an additional week and a half or so by the time we added that to the schedule. And then resanding and then touching up and just the downtime between all of that. But they understood what was going on. They were fine with it. They didn't beat us up over it. Obviously, it came to a cost. It came at a cost to my floor sub and myself. and the customers, they had to be out for an additional week and a half or 2 weeks, but they they never gave us a hard time about it. They understood what went wrong. I didn't know what went wrong until we figured it out. My floor sub didn't know what went wrong until we figured it out, and obviously lesson learned. A lot of lessons and a lot of takeaways on this project, but that was a big one. But the customers were amazing throughout this project. They did everything that they had to do. They moved out, they stayed out, they didn't rush us. I probably saw them a handful of times throughout this project until we got to the end. They weren't up my ass. They weren't asking me for pricing every single day that we ran into something. Every time that we had an issue, I called a site meeting with them. It was the summer. They have kids. The homeowner works from home. So getting everyone together sometimes was tough. But if it was a week later, a week and a half later, we'd meet. We'd go over what we ran into, what my ideas were for moving forward, figure out some sort of budget for them, what to do. And they always afforded me an opportunity to fix it the right way. Even when it cost them more money and more money and more time, they didn't tell me to cover it up. um, they went with my proposed fixes. We did save some money with the roof, not using my typical roof contractor to save some money with everything that we were going through. Um, if I were to do it all again, it's tough. I would have loved to have the budget for that. I would have rather used my standard roof sub for my own reasons of management and everything else. And just the standard that I want, but it was tough. It was considerably less money. And from a value perspective, it probably made more sense to give the homeowners um, this opportunity to use this guy. So that's what we did. But they always allowed us the time and the financial capacity to fix this job. So it was something that we didn't have to compromise our reputation, our standards on. So I'm super grateful for that. They they were supportive. They didn't give us a hard time. They didn't hassle us. They always paid us. They were always gracious for all of the work that we put in. They had our back with issues that were unrelated to us, and they always stood behind us. And even to the end of the job, they their heat stopped working as I was buttoning up the job, which was unrelated to us. A circulation pump went bad in their boiler, so I moved them back into the house. They didn't have heat for 2 days, while the HVAC contractor tried to figure that out because it was a new unit they installed last year. Then they all got COVID. It was the customer's birthday. She had a reservation for a super nice dinner with her and her husband out on Friday night that they obviously couldn't go to. So they asked Rachel and myself if we wanted the reservation. I said, "What's your Venmo?" They said, "No, like you pay when you get there. You just had to give them a credit card to hold the reservation." So we get there, we finish dinner, and they're like, that dinner was taken care of by said customers. So even like till the end of the project, these customers were just amazing. Took my wife and my or sent my wife and myself out to a really nice dinner. Asked me what Justin's address is, if there's a restaurant that he likes, if there's something they can do for him, just like as a gratitude and a thank you for everything that we did. After doubling their budget and being out of their house for twice as long, they were always willing to support us and stand behind us. And it's really, really important to have great customers. Obviously, if I feel we didn't do a good job or we didn't stand behind them and do the right thing, that they probably wouldn't be the customers that they were. Like, I feel that people get the job that they deserve and you get the customers that you deserve, based on how you the expectations that you set, how you perform, how you stand up to your word, how you uphold your word. And I think that, again, everyone did the right thing on this project. Mistakes, not mistakes. We had each other's best interest in mind. So that's really all I could ask for in a project. And Really grateful for customers like that. Um, I don't I don't want to do this job again. I wouldn't want to do this job again. It was really hard, um, physically and emotionally, and it's really tough. Like, I know we had many people who was like, "How do you go to a customer after this many changes?" And it did get easier, right? A lot of these changes, they didn't have a chance. There, it wasn't as though it's like, "Hey, choose this finish versus this finish. This finish is 2x more." It's like, no, you have to do this. Your house is falling apart or there's water getting in. Yeah, there's some ways that we can cut the budget, reduce the budget, but like, to do it right, you almost don't have a choice. But they could have, obviously. Um, it did get a little bit easier once you're that deep in it. It's like you just, right, we ripped the wall out, and we ripped the outside of a wall out and it's completely rotted through. You don't have a choice. Like, it's the middle of summer, it's raining every 3 days. You got to start rebuilding that wall and closing and drying that house in, because it's not a new construction, it's not an addition. It's, anything that gets wet inside of that house is living space. So you don't have that much downtime to problem solve. You don't have much of a choice, which made it easier to go to them with all of these things. But it's still really difficult to tell people, hey, you budgeted this much for this renovation and it's going to be 2x that. And you're going to be out of your house for 2x that. That's really, really hard. Um, this project definitely made me better at that. Um, it made me better at approaching that, and how to really have those conversations with customers and be compassionate for them for what they're going through, yet firm as to what needs to happen to move forward. It reiterated my process, and um, how I approach these jobs, and my pricing structure. And at the end of the day, like, yeah, the job was really expensive, but I look at the number and I think that other people may have charged more. Um, just based on having people buy the balls and not being really much of the customer's not really having a say in what has to be done. Um, I think that you can charge somewhat of whatever you want, and uh, I just get charged for what we work. I just get charged for what it costs the customer, my markup, and whatever time I put in. So I'm happy. I got paid for my time, even though it bumped other jobs, and like, yeah, there was aggravation, everything else, but I got paid. And I really truly believe that, like, if somebody else were to do this project, a bigger company, it would have cost more money, probably substantially more money, because of all the issues that were got ran into. And we, as a small contractor, and being relatively well versed in a lot of trades, I was able to pivot and adapt and not have as much downtime, even though it may take us longer to complete the work, just based on workforce. A little less downtime in between things, right? We're having a close relationship with the engineer, and understanding what has to happen as I can keep framing things while he's getting the design in order and signed off on and stamped, and even, ripping down a wall and redoing the block and raising a foundation and reframing a wall before submitting that all to the township, and saying, like, I'm going to get this through the township as built, and not have to wait for these approvals before I start closing this in. There's just a lot of things and risks that I was willing to take, being small and adaptable, that we kept things moving, especially as we ran into things where it's like, oh, all these trades are already out of here and we now have to demo more. It's like, all right, well, I've dump trailer out back. We'll be the demo guys for the rest of this. Um, so a lot of aggravation, but again, I made the money I had to make. The customers were great. We turned over a product that I felt really I can stand behind, and I'm really proud of. And yeah, it was a big one for me. I'm glad to have it behind us. I'm glad that this is leading into the new year. I'm going to take a little bit of time off. I say that. I keep telling people I'm semi-retired until after the new year. But I have a million things to do, work-wise, life-wise, still haven't unloaded my truck from last Friday when I unloaded about half of it on Friday afternoon. And I was like, I'm tired. Then I took the weekend off, so I have to head out there and unload a little bit more, and then I'm heading to a job tomorrow. But heading into the holidays, I feel good. I feel good wrapping this up. We do have a bit of work to go and fix with some cabinet issues unrelated to us that we're just making some changes. Um, that were design issues and things that got left out that we're going to go and fix. But that stuff all has to come in, so that won't be till after the new year. But until then, the job's all buttoned up, wrapped up, and everyone's happy. I'm happy to be heading into the new year. If this is my last podcast, I appreciate you guys all hanging around, all the support, all the love, all the questions, all the emails. Keep them coming. Keep them coming for 2024. I hope everyone had a good year. I'm excited for 2024. I'm excited to spend a little bit more time and introduce some new things to this. If there's any direction, shape that you want it to take, obviously, let me know. I do want to thank the sponsors. Again, I'm spending, like we spoke about in the beginning of this podcast, I'm spending hours every week devoted to this. And the sponsors, Kuiken Brothers, Andersen Windows, they really make this a lot easier to have some financial backing, to be able to pull back from work and spend time on this. So if you are in need of windows, check out some Andersen Windows. Kuiken Brothers is a huge supplier of them. I didn't know this, but uh, when they first started out, they were manufacturing windows in their millwork shop in Fairlawn, New Jersey, um, like 100 years ago, which is crazy to think. Obviously, they carry windows now. They're not making the windows on site, but they are a huge supplier and a huge vendor for Andersen Windows. You can check them out in Emerson, Fairlawn, Midland Park, Roseland, Succasauna, Wantage, Warwick, New York. So if you're in this area, check out their showroom. Also, their classical molding line, they will ship nationwide. So check them out. It's all finger jointed poplar moldings. The profiles are amazing, historically accurate to scale. Honestly, it's my go-to molding. I'll be putting them in my own house whenever I have a project that I can use their moldings. They ship them down to me. I'm like 2 hours south of them, and they ship down small orders to me. If I need something quick, they'll put it in a UPS box or a FedEx box, cut it right under 8 feet, and ship me what I need for like a fireplace mantle, so I don't have to drive up. So they're willing to work with you. So reach out to them, check out their moldings. But yeah, I really appreciate them. It makes my life a lot easier. It makes not going to work a lot easier, where I'm not stressing about what I'm not getting done or financially. And then it gives me an opportunity to put the resources into doing this the right way. So thank you, Ryan, over at Kuiken Brothers. Thank you, Ellie, at Andersen Windows. I know that Ryan set this whole partnership up here, but Ellie is our main point of contact for the main podcast. So thank you guys. And again, thanks to all you listeners. I appreciate it. I've had a lot of fun this year. I've learned a lot. I feel as though I've gotten a lot better at this, and I'm really looking forward to just get better through the new year. So if I don't see you before year end, this might be it. Might be starting off the new year with a fresh midweek, but it'll be the same old me. So thank you again. Reach out if you have any questions. You want some consulting calls. You have any advice, constructive criticism, whatever it may be. Hop on the website, moderncraftsman.co. Buy yourself some Hive notebooks, some pencils. We'll be getting some new shirts hopefully soon. But thank you. Happy holidays. I appreciate everything, guys. See ya.